Hello home bakers and welcome to Drmummycakes channel. In this video I'll be showing you how I decorated this cake using fondant. You will see all the steps that you need to learn and you can decorate at home using fondant and create your own masterpiece. When you first take your fondant out of the packaging, you can see here it is very hard and not at all stretchy. When you first start using fondant, you need to prepare your fondant, and you do this by kneading your fondant. This allows your fondant to become softer, more pliable and stretchy. This is an important step and make sure you don't miss this out. I have a video where I show you exactly what you need to do to prepare your fondant by kneading and how to know when your fondant is properly kneaded. This will show up at the top of your screen, or you can check in the comments description section. You want to work on a surface that is not sticky. Where possible, use a non-stick silicone mat like I'm using here. But if you don't, you can use a clean kitchen work surface. To make the surface non-sticky, non-slip, coat it with a light dusting of either corn flour or icing sugar. This will stop your fondant from sticking to your work surface. I also like to coat my hands as well so that the fondant doesn't stick to my hand. So you can see here, nice, soft, stretchy, very different from the hard lump that I showed you beforehand. And this is because the fondant has been properly kneaded. Thank you so much to all my Drmummycakes subscribers, and if you haven't subscribed, I'd be really grateful if you can click the subscribe button and turn on all notification bells so that you know when a new tutorial is posted. Thank you. So to start the rolling process, I'm just flattening it off just to have like a nice flat blob, and then I'm going to use my silicone rolling pin to start rolling. And I prefer using silicone rather than the traditional wooden rolling pin because this is non-stick. And you want to roll evenly until your desired thickness. Every so often, flip your fondant. This stops it from sticking to your work surface. It's key to make sure that you have enough fondant to cover your desired size of the cake. You can either use a silicone mat like mine that has markings, so it will show you how big fondant you need to cover your cake, or you can use an online fondant calculator. But it's important to make sure that you roll it big enough so that it will cover your entire cake easily. Also, make sure that you don't roll it too thin. Otherwise, your fondant will break as you try and put it on. And also, don't make it too thick. Otherwise, it's not very pleasant to eat and it's a waste of fondant. So this is my thickness here, my desired thickness. Sometimes it might be a little bit too thin, so you might go slightly thicker than that. But this thinness tends to work for me. Beforehand, I've coated my cake, done a crumb coat with buttercream, or you can use chocolate ganache, and I have videos showing you how to crumb coat your cake and to make chocolate ganache. My cake is not fully hardened, so it's still quite tacky, so you want it to be a little bit tacky so that your fondant will stick to the buttercream. If it's not tacky, you can just brush with a little bit of water. So here I'm just slowly using the rolling pin, folding it over the rolling pin, and then you will unroll it onto your cake like I'm doing here. And you want to do it in a nice gentle move. As you can see, it's important that you have enough fondant, and if you've not put it on properly, you can just slightly lift it and adjust here until the whole cake is covered, just like this. Once your cake is on, you want to start smoothing the top, and here I'm using a plastic smoother to smoothen the top. Once you've smoothened the top, then you just unfold the ruffle of fondant section by section. You can either use your smoother to smooth it, or I prefer to just use my hands. So the key thing is unfolding a ruffle, smoothing it down, doing it slowly in each section. So here again, I'm unfolding the ruffles and smoothing it down. And you keep doing that process and repeating. This step is quite time consuming, but don't be tempted to rush it. It's very important and essential for getting a nice smooth finish. But essentially what you're doing is smoothing each ruffle, folding down and smoothing. Sometimes if your fondant is either too thin or you've put undue pressure, you might get cracks, and the way to fix cracks is just by gently pinching the fondant and molding it over the cracks, and then you can then use your hand or a smoother to smooth those areas. Or if you have cracks that you can't hide, then when you're decorating your cake, you can perhaps stick fondant decoration or other things to hide your imperfection. So I'm just going to increase the speed and just show you the whole process so that you'll know what to expect and you can see what I mean. That this step takes quite a lot of time, but put your effort into it and you'll be rewarded with the cake with a nice finish. So once I've done that, I'm just smoothing the top and just trying to create nice smooth edges. So you need 2 smoothers for that. You put one on the side of the cake and the other just smoothing and pinching the fondant in between the 2 smoothers, and that will give you a nice smooth edge. Once you're happy, you need to trim the excess fondant off. I use a simple kitchen knife and you just want to score the edge, making sure that you don't score too close to the cake. You just want to go right at the edge and peel it off. And as you do that in steps and smoothing as you go. It's better to take off too little and go back again than take off too much. Again, pay attention to this step as you don't want to ruin all your hard work. And I like to do this in steps, smoothing as I go along. And finally, I'm going to cover my cake board with fondant. I think this gives it a more finished, professional look. So what I'm doing is just brushing some water onto the cake board, and this will be make the surface wet because you need something for the fondant to stick to. And already I have rolled some pieces of fondant, and what you do is you just attach it and press it to the edge of the cake and press it down to stick onto your fondant. I tend to do this in 2 sections because it's easier to handle. You can use one very long piece if you wish. And once you've put it on, you're going to use your smoother to just smoothing it down. And this will give you a nice professional looking finish to your cake. Once you've placed your fondant on, you want to use your smoother and smoothing the piece of fondant onto the cake board. If you're using 2 pieces, and then you do the same with the other piece. So here I'm using the kitchen knife to get rid of the excess fondant in the same way as we did with the base of the cake. And voila, here is our finished cake covered in fondant. I hope that you'll try this at home. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next week.